So, hi, everybody. I'm Shari Foos, the founder of the Narrative Method. And tonight we have a really special guest, Eric Weiner, an award winning journalist, best selling author, and speaker. His books include The Geography of Bliss, The Geography of Genius, Man Seeks God, and The Socrates Express. And his latest book, Ben and Me, will be published by Avid Reader Press in June. Is it out?
It's out.
Welcome, Eric Weiner. Thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be here. Here. There you go. Just hit the press or the bookstores.
I love it. It's
Okay.
beautiful. So, why did you write it? Hang
I
on a
mean,
second. I
what?
said I was going to hang on 1 second. Oh, yes, never mind. Unhang
Uh,
on.
so I'll, I'll answer in a slightly convoluted way, but get to the point. So the common advice you may hear in writing class is write about what you know. And I actually think this is bad advice. I think instead you should write about what you want to know, what you're curious
Mm,
about, what drives you, what's your passion. And I became very curious about Benjamin Franklin and about American history, something I frankly had ignored most of my life. Maybe like many people, I was more interested in overseas, in foreigners like Gandhi and Confucius. I lived in the Middle East. I lived in India and Tokyo. And so it was a coming home to write about him. But I do think that's important, that what drives your writing is not knowledge or expertise, but curiosity and passion. And I run writing workshops myself in the Himalayas, and we may have some graduates of that class here, at least one. And I often begin the sessions by people, everyone's nervous, they're sitting around the room, and I say, well, introduce yourself and tell me three of your obsessions. And everyone always has at least three obsessions. Some people have many more. And that's what you should write about. Write about
mm.
whatever it is obsessing you. And that doesn't mean you know it. It doesn't mean you're an expert on it, but it means you're curious about it. You're driven by it. You feel an urgency about the subject. So that's why I wrote this book. That's why I've written all my books.
Wow. That is so obviously a billion times better than your passion because it could be, should be your passion, but there's so much more when it's of your obsession. Like,
Yes,
I
I
can't
prefer the
stop
word.
doing this.
Yeah, I prefer the word obsession to passion,
I
actually, even
love
though
that.
people think obsession has a negative connotation. Obsessions are more honest, in terms of like what you're really about. I mean, you know, I I collect bags. It's a weird obsession, I'll just lay that out
I
there.
like containers of all kinds.
See, everyone's got something. And it
Yeah.
might be, a quirky obsession like that. I'm also, in a more serious way, obsessed about traveling and understanding other cultures and importing their wisdom as much as possible. So yeah, we all have these things that drive us.
It's really interesting. So, at what point did you realize, or at what point in your life did you realize who you really are?
I'll let you know when I know who I am, but it hasn't happened yet.
Well, you
Seriously.
must have thought you knew when you were young and thought you knew everything. Didn't you go through that?
I went through a very brief know-it-all phase. It may have lasted 12 seconds.
Wow.
Otherwise, um, no, I think writing is at least partly a process of getting to know yourself. And this is another misconception, I think, about the writing life. People think, oh, I have to think, and get all my thoughts arranged in just the right order with great clarity, and then I write them down. No, writing is thinking, writing is feeling. You learn
Mm.
to know, you learn what your thoughts are by writing them down. And to some extent, you learn what your feelings are, or you get closer to them by writing them down. So it's not you wait, to know yourself fully, and only then can you write a memoir, say. I mean, the act of for instance, writing a memoir will enable you to actually figure out who you are. And then, of course, it'll
Of
be an
course.
incomplete version, and and you'll have to write 2 or 3 more memoirs about yourself.
Right. And you're always biased,
Well,
but
you should be
that's
biased. I mean, all good writing is subjective, I think. I don't think there's
right.
any such thing as good objective writing. It tends to be very dry. Where I wrote that book about happiness, Geography of Bliss, and I studied the science of happiness. And researchers, psychologists studying happiness, what do they call happiness? They have to give it a fancy name, right? Can't No one's going to give you millions of dollars in grant money to study smiley faces. So they call it subjective well-being. Subjective
Oh,
well-being.
gee, that makes me happy.
Well, but it's true. It's clunky, but if you think about it, it is
Yeah.
subjective. Your well-being is subjective. Happy are you, Shari? Well, you tell me. I can't tell you how happy you are. So, and likewise, there is subjective truth in writing. That's what the
Hmm.
novelist, the memoirist, any writer is conveying their subjective truth.
Wow. I'm really digging what you're saying. I just have to say that. And, it's such a deep entree into something that you're so deeply thoughtful about. And clearly, you have access to real wisdom about what it means to write. And I appreciate your, opening the floor just to the idea that um, you write what you want to know
Right. What,
and
what,
seeing. Go ahead. I
no,
was
go
just going
ahead.
to say, so here's what I'm curious about. How do you feel about showing your flaws um, in your work? I don't mean to make your work bad quality. I mean to be showing your own flaws. How do you feel that does or doesn't belong?
I think it's hugely important. I mean, someone just asked me in another meeting like this, like, what am I most proud of all my writing? And I realized, because I hadn't really thought about it till the question came, I realized that it's when I have taken some place where I'm wounded and
Hmm.
transformed that wound by
Yeah.
simply by writing about it and by sharing it. Pain articulated is pain diminished. Pain
Mm,
articulated is pain diminished. So simply, you're simply describing the pain, getting it out of you and onto the page. I hate to use the word therapeutic, but that's all I can think of right now is cathartic
for
or
sure.
therapeutic. And so when I've written about my struggles with depression and anxiety, or about some place in life where I feel I have failed, writing it down, first writing it down is transformative, and then sharing it in a book is generous, I would say. I mean, my
Hmm.
father was a
Hmm.
doctor. I'm not a doctor. I don't save lives, not the way he did, certainly. My mother was a teacher. She taught people. So that's not what I do. So what I do is I share myself and what I've learned on the page, and always, always thinking about extending a hand to the reader, not talking down to the reader. I don't like the term expertise. I don't feel I really have any expertise, and I don't trust people who self-describe themselves as experts because it's a bit closed off. We're all students, we're all learning. And yeah, so that's the
Well,
kind of
I
writing
I
I'm
deeply
most
appreciate
satisfied.
that.
Yeah,
I mean,
thank you.
how many times have you felt like whatever it was, whatever kind of pain you were able to turn into a piece of work, whether or not you even showed it to someone, that perfect articulation that is so satisfying, has that ever made you feel like it was worth it for this?
Yes, it has. And writing full time as I do as a profession, it's a lonely business. And you sometimes question whether it's worth it. Let's face it, there are a lot of books out there, a lot of writers, and I used to work for NPR as a correspondent and as an international correspondent.
Wow.
And with one of my NPR stories, I would probably reach millions of people, way more than I reach
Mhm.
now with my writing. But I tell myself, and I think it's true, I reach fewer people, but reach them more deeply and reach enough
Mhm.
people. And
Mhm.
I think that's if you're just about numbers, you want the greatest reach, you're gonna be dumbing it down. You're going to be going for the lowest common denominator. I feel the attitude I take with each book that I fling into the world is that it will find its readers, which is not the same as finding all readers. I do believe there's something about books that people find them when they need to find them. Maybe you've had that
Mhm.
experience where you were down or
Yes.
going through a
Magic.
struggle. You go to a used bookstore, you're browsing, there's a book, you pick it up. Could be a novel, could be a self-help book, could be anything, but it was just the book you needed at that time. So there's a wonderful sense of
Definitely.
serendipity
Yes.
to writing and
Yes.
publishing and reading.
Mm. It's so true. It's just like of hundreds and thousands of books in this place on this day. Why did it's almost like magic, isn't it?
There is something magical about writing and about books, which I don't want to make it sound easy, but I guess good magic is not easy either. But there's something ineffable about it, which is ironic because writers put things down in words. But you know, this is the thing. Sometimes when you have an intense experience, positive or negative, you will also just say that it's beyond words, or I don't have the
Mm.
words, and that's the tricky thing, because as writers, that's all we have is our words, right? Use your words. So the challenge of taking an experience that may be so large in a good or bad way and trying to convey it in words when it's beyond words, that's the tricky thing. And you read a very good writer writing about something big or small, and they manage to do that, to take something beyond words and to bring it alive in the world of words.
Uh, Thank you so much. It's not the right place to stop because this is so beautiful. I deeply appreciate your being here. You're being so real, relatable, and I just feel very moved by what you shared. So thank you.